is. It is. It's podcast day. We're excited. We're digging out there. What have we got? Ooh, yes.
Dude, it's fucking podcast day.
Takes you back to that time when you remember what you were doing when you first listened to that album, or
What is going on, you champions? That's right. Yes.
What up?
Podcast day. Two dudes talk music. Yes, and I've been stewing on this shit all day.
What is going on?
Yes.
It's that time. It's that time. Podcast time. Yeah, spill the beans, man. Spill the beans. We want it. We want this. The exclusive details.
Yay.
Yeah, how you going?
How we going? How we going?
Right. Yay.
Whoop, it's your camera that needs changing there.
Yes.
All
How
right.
you going?
Yeah, you know, well, look, not the greatest day, but we'll power through. We'll put on the good face and do all the stuff. For those who may have seen or may not have seen the announcement regarding Moshfest on High Street, unfortunately, the gig's cancelled. There was some issues around the venue, the licensing changed. They couldn't have full bands on anymore. They could only do like acoustic, solo or duo acts, stuff like that, which unfortunately meant they couldn't have an all-day metal festival there. And despite the best efforts of Kazi to try and secure another venue that was, similar to meet all the criteria, there was no venues that were either interested or available for the time. So unfortunately the show's cancelled. We didn't want to wait until like the week of, because we know there's some people that are organising travel and stuff like that, and we don't want them to be left. We don't want to be people to be left hanging at the last second. So yeah, there will be refunds coming to everybody. Just do be patient. There's quite a few of them to get through. The t-shirts, if anyone ordered t-shirts around that, they are still coming. That t-shirt run is still happening.
Want my t-shirt.
So you'll still be able to get. Yeah, you'll still get your t-shirt. Don't worry about that. You'll have all your cool new Tensions Arise swag to wear. But yeah, the show is not happening, at least not at this point in time, with the lineup we were chasing for it to happen there. I guess, again, just got to give a shout out to Kazi for all the effort he put in trying to organise everything.
Yeah.
And
Very
I know
sorry,
how
Kaz.
stressful. I know how stressful the whole thing was for him. And it sucks, man. It sucks that it's not happening. Like, I mean, for me personally, like, as you know, I mean, those of you who, may not know, I'm in Brisbane these days. So for me, it was a lot of travel to get to these rehearsals for stuff.
Yeah.
I think I looked at it all, and I probably did something close to 10,000 kilometers worth of driving for the rehearsals, and weeks worth of time traveling, staying in Sydney to do this. It wasn't just, it's an afternoon on a Sunday. It's like the better part of a week for me to drive down there, spend the day, have the rehearsal, drive back, plus all the costs associated with it. So it's been, for me personally, it was a lot of investment that I put into that as well, and it's just unfortunate, it didn't kind of came. I mean, look, I won't say it was for nothing, because I got to see a lot of friends and family I would otherwise not have had the opportunity to see as soon or as frequently. So there is, I guess, a silver lining there. But yeah, it's unfortunate that the show's not going ahead, but that's okay. Today's show must go on, so
Yep.
we will continue. How about you, buddy? How have you been? What have you been doing?
I've been getting busy with Beer Buddy. Like I said before, at the end of year stream, I sent out 26 messages on Monday night. And at this stage, it looks like I'll be streaming Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Jesus.
So Thursday I'll be here. Monday I'll have Hours of Neptune on. For the first Gymno Rock special for 2023 in the lead up to that.
Lovely, awesome.
Yeah, looking very forward to it. So if you haven't gotten across the Beer Buddy yet, go check out the Beer Buddy YouTube channel and get on it.
Absolutely, man. Well, that's good. That's pretty good. I mean, we're reaching out as well to a lot of people trying to tee up stuff for us this year. So if you're in a band or anything related to the music industry, really, we're trying to expand that a little bit as well. Do more than just bands. We would love to chat with music photographers, venue operators,
Yeah.
booking
Anything.
agents,
Anything.
studio hands, people who work in recording studio, all that sort of stuff. If you've got anything interesting going on, please feel free to talk to us. Give us a shout out. If you're a festival organizer, we'd love to hear from you because we want to know what the fuck's going on with festivals lately. Yeah. So look, without further ado, I think it's time we get to our guest for this week. This is a guy who's been around the metal scene for a very, very long time, and he's part of a
played a lot of
band.
shows together.
Part of a band called Tomorrow's New Format, which is again, that's a band that is steeped in history of the music scene in Sydney. There is almost royalty, I guess, in a lot of ways. Some of those names go back a very, very long time. Mate, Aaron, how you doing, brother?
Good, yourself? Yeah, excited to be here. Pretty good day for me, other than the announcement that you kind of just mentioned as well. I was kind of really looking forward to that being a local one for me, especially, what do we do?
I guess it's one of these things that's a little bit out of our control. We just have to take the lumps and move on, I suppose. But it sucks. Like, we're allowed to be angry about it, but it's, it is what it is. So yes, thank you very, very much for coming on the podcast and having a chat with us. I mean, obviously the intent was to talk about everything primarily as it related to Moshfest on High Street, but that's all right. We still got plenty to talk about.
Well, the new album.
Yeah. So is that album only just come out? The one that went up today, or is that awesome?
It literally it went live today. Obviously,
there was a lot of groundwork into it.
It's been probably 7 or so years kind of in the making, that band. Starting with Evan and Chris, me coming in, Kiva coming in about 18 months ago. And then, the better part of the end of basically the back half of the last year, we just kind of smashed, re-record this, get this done, and finally out. Yeah.
That's awesome. So yes, the first full album from Tomorrow's New Format has literally just dropped on all streaming platforms. So if you got that, if you want to hear what they're all about, that's a great place to start. There is a couple of singles up there from last year, but this is the first full album. So congratulations on the album coming out.
It's a self-titled one, isn't it? So it's just called Tomorrow's New Format. Yeah, fantastic.
Tomorrow's New Format, yeah.
Very good.
Yep.
Keep it simple.
It's a very meaty album. I like it. I like it. I had to listen to it before I came on. I had it going on while I was just sending some messages, and we've got to say,
really fun.
Well, man, the art of making an album is slowly dying, man, and you guys managed to put on a good album there.
Cool. Thank you.
Should be very proud of it.
Just walk us through. So that's obviously the most recent stuff there. Just, you mentioned there that the history of the band goes back several years.
Yes.
Okay. So before we start with the start of the band there, let's go back a little bit further.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, there's some of the people that are involved with this band, yourself included, are almost sort of, have a long history in the Sydney music scene. Let's kind of touch on that first. Obviously, just for anyone who's watching that may not be aware, there's just a bit of your history in the scene, and then let's go on to the other people in the band, and we'll kind of work through their stuff.
Okay, so if you want to go my history, I personally was kind of a bit of a late bloomer. I didn't really start playing in bands till kind of my early 20s.
Don't worry, I was the same.
My history with the band kind of did start a little bit before that, in a sense, because when I was about 16 or 17, I actually seen, I'm sure you've heard Horrorwood Mannequins back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Seen them at a little local PCYC gig over at Wiggle Park many, many years ago. Turns out that's Evan. But yeah, I was a bit of a late bloomer. I met a guy at a pub who was actually, funnily enough, my other band, Hazmat. But before I started playing, I'd met one of the guitarists at a local pub, started chatting. He was in a band, went to see the band. I met Lionel. You could both remember Lionel, I'm sure, from Psycho.
Yep.
Me and him swapped numbers. This was before Facebook and all that kind of stuff, really. And we'd swap text messages, and we got to a point where they were looking for a bass player. And that's how that pretty much started. That's when I would have met you guys the first few times. or many times back in the day.
Yeah.
Then fast forward a few years, Psycho went pretty good there for a while. We all kind of got to the age where we were starting to get a bit older, few kids, all that kind of stuff. We're all still mates. We all still talk. It was kind of dwindled out a little bit, as it does.
Mm-hmm.
I had a bit of a sabbatical for a few years. Then I was getting that itch again. I met a guy through Gumtree named Dave. Shout out to Dave if he ever does see this. A younger fella who actually turned out to be my nephew's friend from high school. That was looking for a band, and that's when The Crier, I don't know if you've seen that. There was a band called The Crier I was in up until just around COVID. It all kind of killed us. Got me back into the scene, and my wife. So I didn't actually know Evan. I know Chris, the drummer. You could probably remember him from Ill Content. Was probably the main band back in the day. Acid Nymph. No, Acid Nymph. What's the other band he was in? That was Brad. Started with an A. I can't remember now. But it started with an A as well. And then my wife sent me a post one day, and it was a post from Evan saying he was looking for a bass player. So I contacted Evan, started chatting with Evan. Turned out that they all went to school together. So funnily enough, my wife, Chris, and Evan all went to school together. I started jamming with Evan, and that was probably me and my wife have been together 8 years, so that was about 7 years ago. Maybe a little bit over 7 years ago. Didn't really, we had a singer, but it wasn't, nothing against her. We're still friends with her and everything. It wasn't kind of at the level, and like, I can't talk, I can't sing. That's why I play guitar or bass. I can't even play guitar. I just play bass.
Hey, never say that. You don't just play bass.
No, I love bass. I'd pick bass. I picked bass over guitar in high school. That's how I kind of got
There
here
you go.
in the first place. So we parted ways. Things got put on the back burner for a while. But me, Chris, and Evan in particular, just kind of like every couple of weeks we were getting together. Oh, here's a new song. Mainly Evan. Evan is a machine with riffs. And we'd kind of jam here and there. And then about 2 years ago, we thought, let's like really crack on trying to find a singer. We went through about 3 or 4 in a short span, posts on Facebook. I think we had a Gumtree ad going at one stage. I'm pretty sure it was called Band Mix. It was like a, what do you call it? Almost like a dating site, but for musos or something.
That's such a good idea.
And yeah, I think it is really. But then, funnily enough, if I remember correctly, we found our singer Kiva through one of Evan's mates that he played video games with. Passed it on to somebody he knew, and then they linked up, and a year later, here we are.
There
Album's
you go.
done.
See, and video games helped.
100%. My mum always told me that, video games would amount to nothing. Well, I got this album out because of video games, essentially.
So Kiva's only been in the band for a year.
Yeah, about that. Maybe 18 months or so.
And the whole writing process has gone on for 7.
But actually, technically we're 2023 now. So it would have been not last year, the end of 2021 we found her. 18 months or so. Yeah.
Far out.
And so when she came in, did you guys sort of have like all the lyrics and melodies and stuff there, and she just kind of put her own spin on them, or did she?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Evan, as I said, once again, going back to Evan, kind of had an idea many years ago before I was in the mix that he wanted to do a new band. He didn't really want to do the heavy metal kind of thing. He had done that a few times.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted something. He was set on having a female singer. His inspiration in a way was kind of like Killing Heidi or Paramore. That kind of, there's some heaviness undertones, so to speak, but that kind of high female front, kind of really in your face, so to speak, vocals. lost myself for a second.
That's right. I mean, look, I completely understand where you're coming from with like the female fronted thing and how difficult it can. Because I mean, you mentioned you guys went through a few people, like a few singers in quick succession there. I mean, look, having been involved with Acid Nymph for the time that I was, and when when Kaya stepped away from the band and we were trying to find a replacement for her, that was so fucking difficult because it's there's not that many female singers interested in fronting metal bands. B, there's the ones that are there's everyone wants a very specific style. When you and you guys obviously would have had a certain style in mind, and it's very, very hard to get the right style from the right person that's going to get along with everybody. And that was, I mean, that ultimately that was the challenge that we ran into. So I feel your pain with having that struggle of trying to find a female vocalist for a heavy band. And because it's like, obviously some of them are going to come in and they're going to be very screaming focused, and you listen to this stuff and it's not, her vocals are not very screaming, so that's obviously not what you guys wanted out of it. You wanted the clean vocals for the most part there, which okay, great, but then there's a dozen different clean vocal styles that you're going to encounter, and do you want something that's like more of a I mean, look, an obvious example is like Nightwish. So do you want something that's more of an operatic style? Do you want something that's more of a pop style vocalist? Do you want like almost like an R&B kind of type voice on there? How do you want a classic rock and roll type? But there's so many, and the fact that it's finding someone with the right look that wants to do this kind of music that you're gonna get along with. It's hard enough when it's just any singer. When you're trying to do a style in which female singers are generally not the norm, and it adds a whole other layer of challenge to finding.
100%, for sure.
I can absolutely respect how difficult of a process that is. Having listened to the stuff, I can absolutely tell she definitely seems to be the right fit in terms of her vocal style. That fits very nicely with what you guys are doing. But so obviously, we mentioned there that Evan is been around the block for a very, very long time. So obviously, going back a long time, he was in Horrorwood Mannequins. Which, if you've been around the Sydney scene for any amount of time, you will have heard that name. And he left that band a long time ago. Kind of went off, did some other stuff. Was he in Chair Like Issues at some point as well?
I'm not sure about that one. I know he was in another band called The Wraith for a while. I think they were like Queensland based, but he was based down here still.
Because I don't know if it was Evan, but I'm certain that someone that was in Horrorwood Mannequins was in Chair Like Issues.
Yeah, I think there was, even after like I first kind of seen him the first few times, I think they went through a few lineup changes as most bands do. So it might have been one of the other ones. I remember that Chair Like Issues. I remember hearing about them, but I don't know who it was. No.
Evan, if you're watching and I've got it wrong, I very sincerely apologize.
But he was kind of like, I remember what you asked. It was about the vocals. So that was one of the things with Kiva is, so Evan, it was probably our first handful of songs, so our first 6 or 7. Of course, they were the ones kind of going back right to Evan's inception of the band, so to speak, that he had kind of came up with lyrics and kind of wrote. There was those first handful of songs he had some for, and then pretty much everything else other than that was like, I might have a line. I don't know what to do for the chorus, but he's got like a melody that he wants. And I think it was her first session with us. She came in, very easy to talk to, all that kind of stuff, and we were actually just jamming on something while we're waiting for her for doing something, and then she came up with something for one of our newer songs that's actually not on this album, it'll be on the next one, which we've pretty much got ready to go as well.
Oh wow!
Yeah, Evan's got so many songs in the bank. It's not funny. The rest of us are trying to catch up to him.
Yes.
But yeah, she within like 20 minutes she had half a song written down, and it's still pretty much what we've got ready to go. We haven't fully recorded that one yet, but you know, that was really fast, really worked well together. So there was a bunch that he had. Now pretty much it's all her. Yeah.
Okay,
Nice.
awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad to hear that there's it's rolling like that, and it's just gels so nicely, because that's I mean, that's very, very hard to find on top of everything else, right? Like finding people that you can get a flow with, and you know, they'll throw out an idea, and it's just very easy to add stuff on and build with that.
And the other thing what was really good about her is she didn't take, if you know, one of them, I'd say more Evan. I'm not really a vocal guy, but sometimes Evan being kind of the main songwriter, I would say he kind of had an idea of what he's looking for to start with.
Yep.
And he said, "Oh no, that's what I want." She's like, "Okay, there's no hard feelings, there's no anything like that. It's like it really is becoming quite a collaborative effort, if you know what I mean." And I think that's how it should be, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, and that's good to hear, because you know, you guys kind of popped up. It's nice when something's been in the works for so long, and then you kind of go, you know, take it out and go public with it all, and you know, it goes gangbusters like that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's always very, very gratifying, I think, to find that. I think I'm sure I saw one of the film clips you guys did that was recorded at LA Studios. Is that correct? Yeah, I recognize that space
straight away. I know that car park and that roller door.
Yes, it was. Yeah, the beginning of it. It was like our full kind of. It was always the first song that was kind of finished. It was always the first clip that was planned to be done. Funnily enough, one of the girls that was singing for us at one stage when I first kind of came into the band is in that film clip. She's one of the mistresses, or whatever you want to class them as. LA Studios, once again, where pretty much all my bands have rehearsed and, you know, done all our stuff. It's
good old
Stu. Shout out to Stu.
Yeah, oh man, the amount of bit. So funny thing about Stewie is that back in the day, my uncle used to play in a band.
Yeah.
And he used to jam at LA Studios.
Oh,
so the guy's a vampire because he doesn't age.
That's probably back when he had his dreadlocks.
It was, man. Like that was the first lot of dreadlocks, because he had 2 lots.
Oh.
So he had dreadlocks down to his knees, then he shaved them off, and then he done it again, and then he shaved it off, and he's kept it off.
Yeah. We all grow up. Yeah, same. I lost all mine sometime. You know, about going on 30.
I mean, that guy's been
like, you know what? Don't worry about it.
that guy's been there for so fucking long. Like,
as long as I've been playing, that's yeah.
And he's, I mean, you know, he's like, if I don't go in for ages, he still remembers you. You know, you don't go in for a while, he'll remember you. I mean, if I go away, you know, I don't do anything for a while, then I come down and you know, for these tensions rehearsals, and he's like, "Oh yeah, how you going, mate? What have you been up to? Blah blah blah." It's just like, bro, how do you the amount of people you must see here, you know, every week, and different bands. So, and you remember individual people, like it's really, really good. So actually,
for sure.
Maybe we should get him on. Maybe we should talk.
I could just drive down there and take the computer and
do it from there. With the arcade machine in the background and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, I was listening to that little announcement, or whatever you want to call it, before. Yeah, something like that would be pretty cool. You know, there's a bunch of photographers out there that have had like quite a, you know, been around for quite a while. That some of those would be pretty good, interesting conversations.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's something we want to try and do this year, is branch out a bit. You know, get a lot of get, you know, lots of cool bands on, kind of do some moonshot ones, reach out to a bunch of bands as well. But we definitely want to try and hit up some photographers. So, you know, people like Christian McGuinness, Mick Goddard, You know,
Oh,
get some
yeah,
of those, get
sure.
some of those people
He
on.
did my wedding.
Because,
Oh,
get some
wow.
of those guys on because they've done.
Yeah, Goddard's a good mate of mine.
Far
Yeah.
out. He done. I was flicking through some photos today, trying to. Well, so I was asking you what I was asking you about today. And yeah, Jesus, just Mick G, Mick G, Mick G, Mick G. I'm like, Jesus,
Mhm.
he's taking a lot of photos of me.
Yeah,
Yeah. You know, people that have been through there and just I think it'd be a really cool thing to do and just get different stories and from
yeah, for
their
sure.
time with different bands. That'd be something really cool. So, walk us through the recording process you guys ran for this album you've done. Whereabouts did you record it at? How long did it take for overall? Like, what was your whole process going through that?
So if I had to break it down to like an hour, like time frame or something, I'd say probably a few months at least if you added it all together.
Mhm.
Funnily enough, we just did it all at Evan's house.
Mhm.
We're all using digital rigs, so it made it quite easy to do. The main thing was, and I'm going to slaughter this because this is all out of my. I'm not a sound engineer. I don't know how it's done, but we did use a kit, but it was other types of samples that he recorded or something. So it's not like an electric kit. It's something like that. And then Evan runs the digital rig. I use a digital rig, so they just plug in, which is nice and easy to do. Vocals is probably one of the easiest to cap. Oh, not the easiest. I suppose guitar and stuff that you can plug straight in is probably the easiest to capture. But vocals is not drums, so to speak.
Pretty straightforward.
So it pretty much just we'd get together every Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes during the week. Whenever there was some time free. Let's get this done. Let's get this done. Chris, from our drummer from Milk and Tan, from several other bands that he was in, pretty much the main man behind that. He was pretty much on the ball of what he does. Once again, all out of my kind of wheelhouse. He comes in, says, "Do this," we do it, and then he does his magic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Usually getting, let's get this song done today, and it might be, Evan will record his guitar. Okay, that's done. Right, finalize that, come back, and sometimes it might not even be the same week. It might have been the next jam or something like that. So it was kind of a slow process, but it was kind of, we built it bit by bit. Like, we got this down, let's get this done, let's nail that, and move on to the next part. We're seeing each other, sometimes a couple times a week. Let's just, momentum.
Do it over time like that.
And we, there was no gigs, there was nothing, everything happening with, the end of COVID and all that kind of stuff. So we just did it piece by piece, really. Yeah.
It's a great way to do it. I mean, that way you don't get tired. There's nothing worse than spending, that 8, 9, when you hit that 12-hour mark in a loud studio. You get tired, man, and then you got to roll back in and do it for another 12 hours the next day, and then you got to try and back it up on the third day, and you're just like, man, as much as it's fun, it is.
That's
just,
where I think
having
your own setup or of some degree, or something that a lot of bands feel like if they're hiring a studio space or using a studio space is they want to. Obviously, different studios run different pricing models and stuff like that. But if you're doing a studio by the day, it's very tempting to go in there and get the most out of every day. So you go in there and you're doing, a 12-hour day or more, and your playing's going to get sloppy. You're going to make mistakes, and you're better off in that scenario.
Sometimes you settle as well.
Yeah,
I've found some people have spoken to me. There's another band that I was kind of with for a while. They'll be out and about soon. They just recorded some of their EP. This was probably going back about a year ago as well. But they found themselves kind of constricted with some time, which kind of pushed things, and they found that they were settling for things that they probably weren't really happy with it, and then they ended up, redoing it essentially because they weren't happy with the product. And now, from what I've heard, it sounds a lot better than what they settled for because they felt like they were rushed into oh, we need to get this all done today, or we need to finish this today. With Hazmat, my other band, even we did all the drums live because we kind of like we're not a metronome type band. We're very kind of flowy, like we drive with each other. So when we recorded our drums, we did the whole go into the studio, spend the 2 days. But once again, by the end of those 2 days, even us who weren't even really worried about getting recorded, we're kind of over it in a sense. But you know, we spent the 2 days, got him, and then obviously COVID happened. This was before COVID, actually. Then COVID wiped out 2.5 years or whatever it was. It's just now that we've come back, we've got those drum files, and now we're going back and we're doing our guitars and you know, bass, vocals, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's it. I think, you know, bands kind of a lot of bands get the wrong idea about it, or especially newer bands, they kind of don't think about alternative ways to make it work. You know, you know, do you want to do a single? Do you want to do an EP? Do you want to do an album? A lot of people, you know, like with obviously, like, so for example, with Skunkbone, you know, we came out and we're like, right, we want to do an album. We want to start with a whole album, because, you know, none of us had been in bands that had done a whole album before. Had singles and EPs and stuff, which have been great, and we've been working towards albums, but we never got to release one. So we're like, let's start with an album. You know, get that out there. And obviously having this set up here made it a lot easier for us, because we could just record everything here. But, you know, I think a lot of bands coming into it, they underestimate the time it's going to take. They think, oh yeah, we can go in there, we can get, like, I've had band, you know, like I had a band talking to me about coming to record here, and they were like, oh yeah, so we're like a day we can bash out 6 songs. I'm like, I mean, if you want them to sound like they were bashed out in a day, but so it's something that I think a lot of bands need to just maybe think a little more about, and change their, you know, how they want to go about it, you know, and do that. Go, look, we can't, you know, we can only afford to do so much right now. All right, cool. Let's get all the drums done. You know, let's go to a space where we can get the drums done, get all of them done. And then, all right, cool. Now we've got the drum tracks. They're fine. Now we're going to go back later on when we can afford to do a bit more, and we'll do all the guitars and bass and blah, blah, blah. You know, doing it piecemeal is certainly an approach to take. And it just depends on, obviously, what type of music they're doing as well, and how experienced they are, how experienced the people they're working with are. But
all that kind of makes a difference. Me personally, I get a little bit nervous. I get
red light syndrome.
That's it, red light syndrome. I'll nail everything, but as soon as that thing comes on, like, nah, I lose it. And probably one thing that made it a little bit different with Tomorrow's, with my last band, Decrier, they when they recorded, which is not the way I had ever recorded before. I'd only recorded with Hazmat or Psycho back in the day. When I recorded with Decrier, and when we did some of the Tomorrow's stuff, it was, you know, we did drums, then we did bass, and it was the first time I had kind of wasn't recording with everybody else, or like not doing it in a different order, so to speak. Which kind of threw me off a little bit, but I've come very accustomed to it over the last 2 years, you know.
I think, you know, I think it's just one of these things where we just need to get more comfortable with it. You know, we just need to be able to relax a little more when we get in there, and trying different approaches, and, you know, recording drums with someone playing along and performing the track with them is a really great way to ensure a performance on the drums, rather than just playing to a scratch track necessarily. But yeah, when you get it can be intimidating when you're the only one in the booth. When you're the only one in there, it's just, how do I, you know, it's just me, all the attention's on me, right? And I've seen so many people just get in there and they freeze, they panic.
You know? The unfortunate thing is, though, it's a part of the job now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just the live shows just aren't enough now. You got to be able to put out a product. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's just I think
And
it's
one every week, you know. Some of these,
well, you
Yeah.
guys just dropped the whole album. You guys could have fed the algorithm gods and drip fed for the next 12 weeks. And
yeah.
yeah, well
Well,
that's
no, good on
you.
yous, good
I
on
think
yous.
we got 4 out, and out of those 4 singles that we released too,
The
there
Halloween
was a couple of
performance.
dub remixes in there. We got done by I don't know the guy's name. Otherwise I'd give him a little plug, but did like EDM dance remixes of a couple of songs, and did an acoustic version of a song, and did like a heavy version of a song.
Mhm.
So yeah, well, that was our kind of lead up, and then finally got it out today. Yeah,
It's good, man.
Yeah.
It's a good lead up.
yeah, it gives you a bit more, gets a bit more stuff out there, gives you some more options for stuff. So that's always fun. And I mean, people having plenty of stuff to listen to is a big help. And it gives you variety for live as well. You know, if you've
Yeah,
got,
for sure.
if you've only got the one album of material, you kind of have to play all of those songs every time you play a show, right?
yeah.
You're just changing the order around a bit. Once you've got a few more songs, you've got like the album and a few more songs. There are a couple of
Yeah.
albums out. You've got that space. You can switch them around. You can rotate songs in and out. If you're getting tired
Yeah,
of them,
we even try to like experiment with like doing this one after this one, but maybe leading into this one, or let's cut this off and do that. Kind of
Yeah.
play around with it a bit, try and keep it fresh. Yeah,
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
It always makes it more fun to do that. So obviously with the Moshfest on High Street show getting canned, that I mean, obviously I don't want to presume that you guys were doing that as an album launch necessarily. But what have you guys got shows lined up as the album launch, or is there something in the works
not
for
just
that?
as of yet. I have been kind of touching bases with, I'm fortunate enough, I guess, and Evan's got a bunch of contacts. Our singer Kiva is actually in another band as well, but they're based down in Melbourne. So we are kind of like, we've been waiting for this to be finalized, which now it is, and then at least doing the East Coast, try to hopefully in the next few months or so, maybe do a Friday Saturday up Queensland. Obviously New South Wales is a lot easier for us, and then do the same thing, a couple of weeks later, maybe do a couple of shows down in Melbourne as well. Well, our next shows are in Melbourne, but these are with a bunch of other bands. The other ones will be kind of more focused on us, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to think, like, if you want, message me after the podcast. I'll throw some, if you need some venue names up around sort of Brisbane,
for sure.
I can probably throw some names at you.
Cool.
It's just a shame because a really good one at Sunshine Coast just closed down, unfortunately.
Oh, it's happening out your way too.
11 Dive Bar, unfortunately, has had to close down.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one. Yeah.
What
At
that
least
happened?
for a while. Just around, I think they closed temporarily over Christmas, and they're kind of like, all right, we're not really sure what the future's going to be. Apparently, they've been having a lot of issues with a leak in the place that they keep saying you need to get this fixed, and they're like, well, we'll get it fixed, and then nothing happens about it. And there's a lot of other issues again. Like it's so ridiculous because it's like the venue is in an old bank, so everything's very reinforced, both in terms of physically and it's very like it's thick walls. It's a very kind of enclosed thing, which helps with the noise factor. And I mean,
I suppose
it's
on the
Sunshine
renovation
Coast.
side, if there's something
It's
internally going on,
like it's the Sunshine Coast. Like it's kind of party. It's a not so much party central, but it's a big party area. There's going to be a lot of bars and venues going. So I don't think it's necessarily a noise complaint issue or anything around that. But I think it's just a combination of opening. Like I think they planned it and built it and started it at the worst possible time, like right around when COVID was kind of becoming a thing. That has affected.
There was a couple of places down
run
here
a lot
that
of stuff, and
happened.
it's so look, they've had a bit of a rough couple of years. They actually got some flack from the local community when they opened because they're like, oh, this area, why do we need a dive bar in this area? Blah blah blah. This is nowhere. Blah blah blah. So and like there was a whole thing on Channel 7 News about it and everything.
Oh, cool.
But
Right.
they kind of persevered and they had a good couple of years there. But I think it's just been very tough on them the way it's been tough on a lot of venues, and so that's a shame. But there's still a bunch of venues around Brisbane City and kind of Gold Coast area that I can sling you away. So definitely remind me once we jump off here, and I'll get some names up for you. And obviously, stuff like Sydney, I suppose you got covered. You got plenty of connections down there. That's
Sydney's probably not too bad. But it's even down here, there's so many that have come and gone since I remember when I was with like Psycho back in the day, and then all the places we played together, they're all gone now. Like I can't think of like one place other than even the Stag isn't even there technically anymore. You know what I mean? How many times did we play St Mary's or Penrith or even the places in the city? They're all gone. And then when I came back to the scene after that break, all these other places, I'm like, oh, some of these places are mad. Like, where were these before? But then COVID happened, and then they're gone now too.
Yeah.
And then as Carl just said, Frankie's is gone now too, which is I mean, that was a great place. I love that place. I'm feeling it's gone, but what do you do?
But that's
the government wanted to build more things, whatever.
But that's how broken we are as metalheads.
Yeah.
Or that is how many times we've said that about great venues. The Albion Hotel when they used to do Club Link there. Hotel X when they used to do Club Link there. Hot Damn. You have a look at all those places. Frankie's Pizza. All of them. Lewisham Hotel.
Yeah.
My
my first 2 gigs with Psycho, we had a double. It was one on a Thursday night and one on a Saturday, I think it was, or Friday, Sunday, something like that. The first one was at what was that place? The Sandringham, back in when that was around, and then Lewisham,
Agincourt.
Agincourt,
That's just Sydney. We are getting fewer venues, and the venues that do manage to want to put us on, they are so hard to get to.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some that just
And I mean, I don't know what the fix is. I don't think there's any.
There's none.
The fix is, I guess, that people need to get out there and support local bands. That's what they need to do, because if the people aren't going, then the venues aren't gonna be able to function. At the end of the day, that's what it is. And yes, I
think some of the venues pull off for, which is probably something we'll touch on a little bit later, is there might be a place that'll try something like this, and then they get people in there that trash the place, that people aren't really there for a respect of the music. They're there to, do whatever they want to do. And then the place gets trashed and like, well, no, I'm not going to do this again.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to go back to cover bands or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the other thing, I guess. I think, a lot of RSLs, will have, they and sports clubs, they have they'll do cover bands, but that's a stage in an open area, so you're not going to have then they're not going to get 5 metal bands to come and play in their main bar area like that, and they don't really have. But this is where I think they're missing out on a market, right? Sports clubs and things like that, I don't know how many of them have this, but they should look at implementing it. You're already a venue, you're already a venue, you're already having bands and all this stuff on. Just have a small band room. Have a small band room, like where, that's like 150 capacity or something like that. And you don't have to have a bar in there. You just have to, have a go outside to go to the bar.
Go out to the
bar,
bar.
Go back in. But have a small room off to the side like that, and put, like hire it out. Like let people put shows on there, right? You doesn't have to be a whiz bang lighting rig. Have a decent decent basic lighting rig in there, a decent basic PA system in there, and like I think they would, if they're opening it up, and they can have all sorts of shows on there.
For sure.
They can do like hip hop, rap, R&B shows, jazz shows, whatever.
Sure.
And smallish, they can do run smaller shows in there. They could even operate it potentially as like a licensed all ages thing if they do them at certain times of the day, because they're already licensed all ages venues.
Yeah.
In that they, people can go in there with their families and take the, it's the solution's there, and that's like the venue. Like, I think that's probably the best solution. The problem's going to be convincing these organizations to do something like that. Why do that when we, that's the capacity we'll need. Well, how many pokies could we squeeze in that space?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, I think it just needs some of these venues, some of these sports clubs and RSLs to go. How much do we want to make? How much can we let's this will support it. They these places always go on about how much they want to support their local communities. This is how to support their local communities. So
100%.
It could be something like that, but I don't know. Just while we're on this stuff too, like, obviously, if any viewers out there have thoughts on this stuff, any input, suggestions on any and all of these things, feel free, put them in the chat. If you've got any questions for Aaron about anything, put them in the chat there. We'll pass those on for sure, and try and get those answered for you as they're coming along. So you mentioned, obviously, you guys are looking at maybe an East Coast tour. You guys have got some more material that's in the works already there towards another album. Is that second album, something that you think is gonna be starting to record soon, or you're just gonna let this one sit for a while? Or because if you guys could get 2 albums out within the space of a year, that'd be pretty impressive.
I could say it'll be out by the end of the year.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to look at what's on the computer, I think all up there was about maybe 16 or 17 songs done, 11 of which are on the first album. So we could be about halfway through. And see, I suppose the thing is like, most of the music's done. It's sometimes now we're just trying to catch up with some of the, because me, Evan, and Chris had 5 years before Kiva came in that we were working on the music. So we've got the music there pretty much. And there's quite a bit recorded. Some of it we've, Kiva might have come up with an idea, so we've changed it to suit that.
Yep.
So some of them we're going back and touching up, but I'd say, there's a good chunk of it done, but maybe a third of it done already, at least.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's really cool. So yeah, hopefully we'll see that one by the end of the year, because that's something I'd been hoping to do with Skunkbone, was kind of like get that first album done, get it out, whatever, and then try and push towards getting a second album done within 12 months after the first one, right? Like, because you get 2 full albums out in that time, it's a pretty impressive feat to manage. Obviously didn't get there because there was a lot of other stuff that was going on, but it's something, and like I said, it gives you guys that more material to play with. You can do it's a better problem to have, going, all right, well, which songs do we have to cut out? Which songs do we have to cut out to make this work? Versus which songs do we, how many songs do we have? How much time can we fill? Do we need to, like, we kind of have to play these songs which we feel may interrupt the flow of the set?
That's versus something we go through now with Hazmat. Is like, we got 3 albums worth of material now, and it's like, okay, well, that song from album 1 really goes into this song from album 3, but we normally go from that to this, so like, well, we can't do that now, so we've got to swap it here. But it's cool. It's something to, once again, as you said, keep it fresh, play around with it. It's better to have too many songs than, in a sense, so we can change it up. We could essentially do, almost like the Metallica thing, where they'll do 3 nights in a row and never play the same song.
Exactly.
In a set, so to speak, not quite that intense, but we could do
I know what
2
you
shows and do 2 totally different sets, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a better problem to have than going, oh shit, we've only got 5 songs, so we're gonna have to put 3 or 4 covers in our set to get out, and
And then you're a
then,
headliner
you know,
or something, and they go one more song, and you're like, we haven't got any.
and
Anymore.
yeah. I mean, that's something. I mean, I don't know. I've always been like, if you're gonna play if you're gonna have a cover in your set, cool. Have one cover. Don't have several.
Yeah.
Especially if you're, you know, because I think that's the thing. I think a lot of younger bands are so keen to get out there and start performing that they'll be like, all right, yeah, cool. We got 6 songs. All right, we need you to fill 40 minutes. Okay, we'll
We're
throw.
a punk band. Our songs are 3 minutes long.
We'll put 3 covers in there. It's like, just take a step back and write more songs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's the kind of stuff you only learn through being in it for a while. And I mean, we can say that, but a lot of, you know, the kids these days, you know, the kids coming up in the scene, they just want to get out there and play. They want to be like, well, no, we're gonna
Some crackers coming up too. Man.
Why should we?
man.
Some young guys I've played with, I'm like, oh my god, like I don't want to go on after that now. Like,
yeah, like, bro, the stuff that I've seen, like, there's so much fucking talent coming up, and I will say they, in a lot of ways, they know, like they know the content game a lot better.
yes,
than what we
100%.
do.
Yeah.
And you know, we're there. We're the crusty old people who were like, all right, cool. MySpace and then early Facebook when it just showed everyone your posts all of the time.
Yes,
You know, it showed all of your friends all of your posts, and Facebook events were actually a valid way of trying to get people to shows and promote shows and you know, all this stuff. And it just kind of, excuse me.
Well, that was the only reason I ended up on Facebook. It never really interested me. And then I joined Psycho, and it started to be like a little networking thing.
Yeah, and now you can't leave, right?
Yeah.
Because you kind of have to stay on there for.
Yeah.
Like, honestly,
But,
if,
you know,
if I wasn't
these
if I wasn't in a band or doing the podcast, I'd probably, like, I wouldn't. I don't think I'd be on there. I think I'd just go
I
away
ended up
from it.
with TikTok only because, as I said, a band that I was with them just as COVID hit. We jammed a few times, really gelled, everything was going good. COVID hit, we had guitar change, drummer change, singer change. It got to the point where I was still in the mix. Everything came back, like, you know, once we started gigging again, I was already in 2 bands, and the third one coming. Everything was getting a bit too full on for me. I couldn't really commit like the time I wanted to them, and like I felt like I was letting them down. So, as I said, we're really good mates, and we just parted ways mutually, so to speak. But one thing that they were really starting to push was like some of the content stuff and doing little clips of this, or, you know, a flashy logo with a snippet of this, and like as it was coming up, and that's how I ended up with TikTok. So I do have a bit of a scroll here and there, and the amount of bands, or, you know, it might be a member of a band plugging their band.
Yeah.
There's so much music, and some of the music content on there is phenomenal. Yeah, you know, you got TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, not to mention, you know, whatever else is out there.
Well, you got Discord, you got so much.
Yeah, I'm starting to see some local bands that are setting up, that are doing like the Discord thing for their fan base now. So as a way to promote stuff, because you generally, you know, it's because you can, when you're in a Discord thing, it's like you can, if you've got a large group and you're trying to get a message out to everybody, you can do at everyone. Facebook message conversation, Facebook conversation, right? You go at everyone, and it'll send that notification out to everybody, and be like, there's an alert there and stuff. So it's you know, I think sometimes it's just a matter of, these are the tools that are available. Utilize them.
Use them to it. 100%.
Is there? I know there was a thing for a while. I'm not sure if it's as popular now, but a lot of bands were utilizing Patreon as well. Where, you know, you'd go on there and you'd have people paying like a monthly subscription, and they'd get specific perks out of that. Like maybe you'd get there'd be like an exclusive video call with stuff.
Follow or what they do a lot of that Patreon stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's just a matter of, you know, finding the tools. And look, these days there's no, I don't really think there's a right or wrong way to do it anymore. You know, like back in the day, it was like, no, that's not how you do it. You have to go and put in the hard yards. You have to go and do this. Well, you know, now you have to play the fucking algorithm game and do all this.
And you have to be on everything.
But even yeah, but even
That's how you do it. You just be on everything.
the only reason you have to be on everything is that so no one else can pop up on the other things claiming to be you. Like there's that worry as well, because it's not that I think anyone's gonna pop up necessarily on Twitter, for example, claiming to be like one of us, one of the two dudes talk music and run our in the ground. Like what would they have to gain from that? But if you don't at least have the profile with the name and the link, the username secured, well, like that, then you've got it there for if you need it later, right? So it's definitely us old guys with our way of doing it is we're a thing of the past now in a lot of ways, I think, and the old way of doing it, like we were talking about, Kyle mentioned before, doing like a rolling release on the album, something, if you go, all right, hey, like we got this album, we're going to release a song every week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however you want to do it, and that kind of keeps the content going. It keeps the algorithm happy. It keeps the thing.
It's almost like the week to week, like TV shows, instead of it's always kind of building momentum. It's always something there, keeping it in the spotlight, so to speak.
Precisely.
Leave the people in suspense.
How do you convince people to buy a physical copy of your album when they can get it, for quote unquote free, or they can pay the price of your album to get it on Spotify or YouTube Music with everything else that's on those platforms as well, right? So there's all those kind of challenges, I think, that are presented in the new way of doing stuff. But look, how about, I think it's time that we go on to the quick question quarter.
Kyle,
got the thing. You're gonna...
I do. I have the thing. I'm just going to mute the music so everyone can hear everything properly.
See if it works. It's going to work?
It is.
Yeah, there we go. Lovely.
Yes.
All right. So for those of you who may not have seen the podcast before, this is the quick question quarter. We have a bunch of rapid fire questions that start out very easy and start to get a little bit more challenging as we go further down. So Aaron, I do hope you're ready for these. I think you mentioned you've watched the podcast a couple of the
I've been watching them.
So
good on you're a champion.
You'll know what to expect here, but let's get going. So what was the first instrument that you played?
So I would say guitar. Back in high school, it was guitar or keyboard.
Okay.
I picked up the guitar because the keyboard wasn't really my thing, but really found those top 3 strings in particular of the guitar a bit more fun. And then it was a bass. Like I went out and bought my first bass when I was like 15. I was working at Macca's, and then bass. It's always been bass. It was called a Legend. It was like a P bass, red P bass looking copy type thing. It wasn't too bad. It was kind of a couple of things were falling apart. I took it to school. My music teacher fixed the pickups and did a setup and all this kind of stuff that I didn't know how to do yet for me, and it wasn't too bad. And,
that's good.
Awesome.
And now we're here.
Also big shout out to Kiva. Thank you for the follow.
Hey, Kiva.
Glad to see that you're watching. We were talking about you earlier. All good things, I promise.
All good,
all right. So moving on here. What was the first album that you purchased?
Now there's 2. I can't remember exactly which one came first, but there was 2 albums I distinctly remember buying when I was a kid. I was working at Macca's before, while I was still in school. One of them, a lot of people give me crap for this, but I stand by this band. I love this band still. It was Chocolate Starfish Hot Dog Flavored Water by Limp Bizkit.
It's the voice of our generation. It's the album of our generation.
You will not get any hate for showing some Limp Bizkit love here. This is like my whole. This is our whole fucking.
It's one of the reasons I am here. I started with punk stuff. Got onto them, they started to show me some heavier influence. Some of their heavy stuff is got some grunt to it.
Oh yeah.
And then I got heavier and heavier. But the other one that I distinctly remember buying very, very early days, and I can't remember exactly which one came first, was as Identical Remote Controlled Reactions by Super Heist.
Oh wow.
Super Heist, man. Fuck yeah.
Both from my local Kmart.
Man, I can remember. I
Back
can
in the
remember
day.
when Bullet came out, when Super Heist
Yeah,
dropped
yeah.
Bullet, and that was like it was all I listened to. Like I fucking had this. Went out and bought the single. I had it on repeat in my like to the point where my parents probably
Same.
fucking hated it. That song was just there, and then like I think, fuck, I think it was. Yeah, then I think Acid Nymph went a while back in Canberra. We got to play a show that Super Heist actually were headlining when they kind of did their
Oh man.
reunion
Yeah.
back in the mid 2010s,
Oh,
and getting
far
to
out.
finally hear. And I know it was like I think it was a different singer by that point, but
Yeah, I think so. Is that
getting to hear,
the one where Drew threw his bass?
I
Was that
honestly
tour?
can't even remember. I
Oh.
can't remember, man. But getting to hear Bullet live because I never
Yeah.
got to hear it live back in the day. I never got to see them live back in the day. So
Yeah, well, same. Yeah.
getting to see them, not only be on a see it, but be on a show where they were playing. I'm like, okay, that's pretty fucking that was
That's
pretty
pretty
rad.
cool.
Got in the
Yeah.
pit for Bullet, and it was just like, yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Speaking of live shows, what's the first live concert that you attended?
Like local or
We'll do
bigger
both. What
bands?
was the first local one, and then what was the
So the
first big
first
one?
local band I really remember, as I said, there was that like PCYC gig.
Yep.
I was about 16 or 17. It was Wetherill Park, PCYC.
Fucking Wetherill Park.
Yeah, I knew a guy who I met at the bus station. Actually, I was working as apprentice mechanic at the time. I met this guy at the bus station. He knew some dudes that were in this other band that played that show. I can't remember their names now. But the drummer was Tim. Do you remember Tim from? He was in Aorta. He played in a bunch of bands that you'd know him if you've seen him. Yeah, Horrorwood Mannequins and Darker Half. And years later, I start playing with. Well, I play in a band with Evan now, and I played a bunch of shows with Darker Half. With Hazmat. So playing, if you want to say playing with those two bands that were kind of like some of my first ones I ever seen. Yeah, pretty cool.
Full circle.
And then the first one I remember once I was 18, as I said, was actually a Hazmat show, which is where I met Lionel. I went to watch Hazmat, and then I started playing in the band with Lionel, and then that's how I met Hazmat again, and that's when they asked me to join them.
So yeah, it's the connections. You got to do your networking.
That's it,
Got to do your
man.
networking.
And my
Absolutely.
first big one would have been I was kind of in my high school group. I was the odd one out in a sense. There was a couple of guys that would listen to that song here or there. That was on the radio. Like there was your Metallica or your System of a Down, like those things that were still on TV at the time. But no one really to go with. And I remember one of the first big ones I ever went to was AC/DC in 2009-ish. I think it was the Black Ice tour.
Yep, I went to one of those shows on that tour.
Yeah, it was the first like big kind of blockbuster one I went to, and there's been a handful more since. But
yeah, that show was crazy because I think at that
It was
point,
pretty
like
cool.
I'd been to some like music festivals, which obviously have a lot of people there, but this was the first time I think at like an event in one stadium with like that's because I mean that was at the main thing at the ANZ Stadium. Was it ANZ Stadium or at Olympic Park? And it was
It was
however
huge.
many tens of thousands of people were in there. Like it must have been 50,000, something like that. And
Yeah,
it was like,
well, I think it holds about 80, but they would have blocked a bunch off because of and whatever they get on the floor. So probably 50,000 or so. Yeah.
And I was like, I was on the floor for that down by the runway that went out.
Yeah.
From the stage. So that was pretty wild.
That would be cool. Yeah.
I made the mistake of wearing I made the mistake of wearing boots that were not very comfortable, and so I was just like, my feet were killing me by the end of it. That fucking were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at that tour, man. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
It was good. Yeah.
All right. What's an instrument that you've always wanted to learn, but haven't been able to yet?
This one I've been thinking about for a while since I've seen it on one of your one of the episodes, and I'm kind of tossed up with two because I think they both can work really well in my type of music or even heavier types of music, and some of them do use them in like your black metal or whatever. But keyboard or violin, I couldn't pick one over the other. I've always loved like that violin or cello-y, like a string kind of bowy instrument. And you know, keys can work really well in anything as well. So
Yeah. I mean, it's a catch-22, right? Because if you do, I mean, I would say keys is probably easier to get the basics of.
yeah,
It's much easier. It's a bit like guitar. Piano keyboard is very easy to get the basics of. But there's a lot of work to go into master it. Whereas something like a violin, yeah,
exactly, yeah,
but there's going to be a lot more people that have that skill, right? Whereas if you go with something like a violin, there might be less people doing metal that have that skill, but it's a lot harder to get those initial things. Like I had a cello for a number of years. I recently sold it because it just wasn't getting used. Like I tried every time I tried to pick it up, I just found I just couldn't get the knack of it. I didn't have enough time to practice regularly on it, so I was like, you know, this is just taking up space. So I get rid of it. But it is a you know, a good approach to take with it, and you know, it's a bit easier to go, oh, you know, if you want to do, for example, like me, I'd like fuck around, I'd learn like aerials by System of a Down or something, because it's tuned in fifths, easy, mate. You just basically drop D all the time, but yeah, so no, that's those are some pretty good picks there for sure. All right, here's a good one for you. I like this. So the if you could pick one big band or artist to open a show for, now this is living or dead, active or not, whatever, you know, whatever point in their career, if you could just pluck them out of time and open a show for them, who would it be?
This is going to be probably a really weird answer, and none of my bands would suit it or anything like that. But if I could have been in the music scene and opened for somebody, it's more of a somebody than a band, so to speak. Would have been, you know, like Elvis.
Yeah, that's a
okay.
We haven't had that one. That's a good one. I like it.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean that's
it's something that's come up recently for me. Hence the tattoo. It's always been this. My mum always kind of had a big love for Elvis, so I kind of grew up with it. But as I said, and you'd probably totally agree with me. Like if you look at our influences, whatever they may be, and then you look at their influences and their influences and their influences, and you go back a couple of generations, a lot of them start around that era. So if there's anybody I could, be a part of a show with.
Yeah, like Elvis was really one of the first white guys to kind of do the rock and roll thing. In a lot of ways. So yeah, that's good. You just got to keep him away from the underage girls, okay?
Yeah.
Got to do that. All right, who is a band or artist that you're listening to at the moment that you think is seriously underrated and that more people should pay attention to?
Okay, I don't know if they're underrated. This is another one that I've been thinking about for a while. But I haven't met anybody yet that has heard of this band. I stumbled across them on some ad on Facebook that was for like some program where you learn how to, what was it called, Nail the Mix.
Love Nail the Mix.
I'm not
That's
sure.
A great program.
Yeah. I don't know if they're, if I'm pronouncing it right, but I think it's called Leprous. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. It's Leprous. They're kind of like a symphonic black metal 12-foot ninja. Is probably a way I could describe them.
Okay.
Look up a song called Slave. It's very the guy's got a fantastic voice, and then they'll throw it into like this massive black metal bridge, and then go back to this operatic, beautiful. It's really good.
Awesome, cool. So that's awesome. Yeah, so I'll put those on the list then for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. That's awesome. What is something that people may be surprised to learn about you?
This one's kind of stumped me for a little bit because I'm pretty open with most of the people like in my life. But I suppose one thing that kind of shocks a few people when I say it is that I've never really had any musical lessons. Like everything I've done or I do now is what I've taught myself. I did like a little bit in high school, as you do. I did my elective as music, so my year 9 and 10 before I left school. I did music, did not pay attention to really anything. All the practical stuff I loved, but I know all of it. I kind of retained a lot of the information, but like I wasn't really interested in the color of sound and all that kind of stuff that they were trying to teach us.
Yeah.
But as I said, going back to, I just bought that bass that I found in cash converters at Fairfield. That's not even there anymore. It was only like $200, but I was at Macca's. I paid like $10 a week on it, and I downloaded a bunch of tabs from the internet, and I just taught myself a bunch of Silverchair songs, bunch of Blink-182 songs, and that's pretty much here I am now. Over the years, I've been able to pick up like notes and learn how, you know, this is here and, you know, all those kind of different positions and some of the modes, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I still don't really understand all of
it. Yeah, no, that's all right. I get it. Bass player solidarity, brother. It's just, I don't know any music theory. It just sounds good.
Yeah.
Speaking of Silverchair, though, actually, I found out something I found out the other day that I hadn't realized back, you know, at the time. They were, like, obviously they were a big deal here for Australians. I hadn't realized how big they had toured overseas, like in the US, fairly regularly. Back in the day as well, they had toured like US and Canada. They were fairly like they're a band that a lot of people, at least their first few couple of albums, really got a lot of traction in the scene over there as well, which is
I would say Frog Stomp is one of the, if not
first song I learnt on bass, Israel Sun.
There you go, mate. Frog Stomp is probably one of fucking easy top 10 greatest Australian albums ever made.
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, there's some good stuff there for sure. All right, cringiest band name or song name that you've been involved with?
Personally, I didn't think it was too bad. But this, once again, shout out to Dave if he ever does see this, because it was kind of his idea to pull the name. But when I got back into the music scene a few years ago, Decrier, when we all came together, we were actually called Cinematic Chaos. And we had like a bit of a new metal-y vibe. And then we started, you know, the more we started jamming, we started getting this kind of really kind of blackened, well, they say blackened, like a black, kind of progressive black metal sound. And we changed our name to Decrier, which was what we were known for. But we did actually do 2 gigs under the name Cinematic Chaos. We had a logo and everything, and you kind of look back at it, it's like, yeah, what it merged into was so much better than what we started with. But that's how we came together, you know?
Yeah.
And it is what it is. Yeah.
Cool.
And I don't think it was that bad, but there was a lot of people that said, you know, it's not the best. It had like a bit of a, and I suppose that name, for if you look up our music and then you hear that name, you're like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Yeah.
No, if that's fair enough. I mean, I suppose if you guys had sort of stuck on the new metal thing, it might have worked a bit more. But if you're changing musical direction, sometimes that breaks, that clean break's needed, and you just need a new identity for what you're doing. So I mean, there's some bands I think that, I think there's a couple of bands around here that do. It's the same group of dudes, but they play a couple of different styles of music. And they'll do one style, they'll be under one name, and the other style they'll be under another name. Even though it's the same group of dudes, which is it's an interesting choice, but it's I suppose it does help a little bit with that differentiation, because you can go, well, okay, I'm in this band. Well, what style is it? Oh, we're this. I'm also in another band. What style is that? Okay, we do this. And it also means, I guess, if you're trying to make it as a musician, you can do 2 different gigs, you know, and you're not sort of restricted by venues going, oh, you can't play any other gigs in, you know, within 2 weeks in the same area or whatever, because we got, you know, you do one gig in one thing, and then the next day you're playing another gig, but it's in a different style in your other band and a different name. And you're not sort of hurting that. So that's okay, cool. So cinematic chaos. I like that. And what's your most controversial musical opinion?
It's my favorite. Oh, he cut out. It did this.
No, you cut out. What's going?
No, he's muted it now.
Cannot hear you. Cannot
hear you.
Sorry.
Oh, wait. Okay.
Are you back?
All right. Yeah. Sorry, I just had a phone call come through. Probably a weird one. I've never been able to get into Megadeth. I just
There's no
That's
issue.
fine.
I just can't get into them.
Yep. No, there's nothing wrong with that.
That's
Lots of
fine.
people love them, and
You don't have to like anything.
I don't know. I think it's his voice. I like the music.
No, I
think
get that.
his
I
voice-
get that.
I get that.
His voice.
I
Really puts me
100%
off.
get that. His voice is
Yeah.
very grating. I like a few songs, but for me, it's not very, it's not a huge thing for sure. Cool. All right. Well, that brings us to everybody's favorite segment, the fuck off files.
Yes.
Kyle, when you are ready, please
Hit
hit the thing.
the thing. Mute the music. Do that and hit the thing. Let's get ready. Fuck off files. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, yes, for those who are watching us for the first time, maybe are not familiar with what this is the Fuck Off Files. This is where we ask our esteemed guest to tell us 3 things that if they could just snap their fingers and Thanos these things out of the music industry, what 3 things would they get rid of? What 3 things would they fuck off out of the music industry and why? So without further ado, Aaron, please, your first one.
Okay, so I think some of mine, you could kind of maybe even class them all as one because if you basic down it, it's like disrespect in the scene. So kind of touching on what I mentioned earlier, for example, there was a little scene, a venue in Newtown. Two blokes owned it. They were awesome blokes. Always had a bunch of bands on, but I can remember a period. There was gigs there every week. They put a bunch, and they did some like hip hop shows and all this kind of stuff. But every time there was a metal show, their bathroom would get demolished. The guys would kick holes in the walls, kick the door down. They'd repair it. Next weekend, done again. Every Monday, without fail, there was a post going up saying, can you stop this? Like, we're repairing the bathroom every night, every week, So disrespect to the venues is, once again, when we want to, there's places, we find it hard to play places because there is those people that go out there and all they want to do is break this or break that or, punch on or whatever they want to do.
Or even if that's not what they're setting out to do, like they can't handle their piss and then they get wasted and then they just become fucking like tornadoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of touching on what you just said was another one of mine, and I noticed in one of your other episodes, I forgot the girl's name, but Acid Cherry had mentioned the same thing with substance abuse in the scene, about people that come and just want to come for to hurt other people, or not necessarily like because they want to hurt a person, but they just want to let their anger out in an abusive way. And probably number 3 kind of goes back to the disrespect is like if you could call it like elitism, like how people, there's like, I'm better than this and you're better than that. And at the end of the day, we're all musos. We're all
broke musicians.
Like just no one's better than anybody. We all have struggles. We all have different beliefs or sexualities or opinions or whatever it is. Just once again, kind of going back to the disrespect. Like at the end of the day, like everybody should be treated equal and nobody should be treated less than anybody else. Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
They're good
that's
ones.
yeah. That's all pretty
There is
fair.
a lot of
And
disrespect in the scene.
there is a lot of gatekeeping. I think
Gatekeeping
similar
is probably a good word. Yeah.
I guess it's similar to the Dunning-Kruger effect, where people learn, a little bit about a subject and they assume that they know everything and that they're really smart and everything. And then, once you get over that hump, you kind of go, oh, shit, okay, yeah, we actually don't know about fucking anything. And it just takes you, So I think a lot of people go through... I think most people that they come into the scene, and if they experience that, it's usually around, them sort of mid to late 20s when their band has had a bit of success for a while and they're sort of riding high on that and they're very popular and they get a bit of that. And obviously not everyone that goes through that. But I find that's when most people tend to experience that. Maybe their band's had some success and they've got a couple of international supports and stuff, and they start thinking, well, okay, so we deserve every international support, and they start doing their thing. And for most people, I think once they get into their 30s, that starts to go away when they kind of realize, oh yeah, okay, I was a bit of a dick there. For some people, it never does, unfortunately, and then you end up with
and I
you
find
end up
it's
with
not
some
even
old
just
bitter
the
people
band,
that get
it's just
very
the
lonely.
punters
But
as well.
yeah, definitely. You get people they go, oh, well, the guys that'll see like a girl at a show and think, oh yeah, no, she's she's just here because it's trendy, or that's this thing.
Yeah.
That's where I think it is hard. It is hard. Like I think, I don't know about you guys, like I found, as an example, like when, more recently, thanks to like TikTok and all, various trends on there and stuff, like alternative culture has started to become trendy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy for those of us that have been fans of the alternative culture and engaged with the alternative culture for most of our lives, who have, I say suffered in, because realistically, like, grand scheme, yes, we suffered some bullying. We went through bullying in school, which, okay, that's awful. But, and I'm not going to get into comparing who went through worse or anything like that. What I'm just saying is, like, we went through some shitty experiences because of what we were interested in. And it's very easy for us to go, well, I had to suffer for it. Why should you not have to do that? Why should you have to just get all the perks without having any of the negative stuff that's gone with it? And I think what we tend to forget is when we were going through that shit, we wished that we could have got it. We wished we could have just enjoyed what we enjoyed and liked what we liked without having the negative shit there. So I think it's a bit shit when people of our sort of age group, or who have been alternative for a long time, and then people are kind of coming to it or discovering it through that, if we're automatically assuming they're only doing it because it's trendy. And look, I'm not going to lie, there are some people that are only doing it because it's trendy and they'll move on in 2 months to whatever the next thing is. But for a lot of people, like Metallica, having Master Puppets in Stranger Things, right? Kind of opened, that was an awakening to a lot of kids. A lot of kids who were watching Stranger Things.
In particular, I was so proud when he kind of came to me. He's like, "Oh, I've seen this song on the show." You're like, I'd seen it already as well, but he's like, he showed me. I'm like, yeah, I know Metallica. But then it opened the doorway for him. And like, he grew up with me always having it in the background and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But as they do, they wander away and they do that. And he's in high school now, and he found it again. And then he mentioned something at school, and one of his teachers had mentioned Megadeth. And he asked me, he goes, is Megadeth Metallica? He didn't get the thing, so he asked me to explain to him what the whole Metallica Megadeth thing was. And then now he's listening to quite a bit of that early Metallica, but now he's found his own little niche, which is not really my thing, but he went from like this kind of pop rap that you would see on your YouTubes or whatever, to now he's found his own thing, which is like all this indie rock stuff. Quite a few Australian bands that I'd never even heard of, and I couldn't even tell you any names. And like some of it's pretty good too, but it's like kind of out of the blue kind of weird stuff, but it's really, really cool. Yeah.
Some of it's very hit and miss. I love good indie rock. Love me some good indie rock.
So, but yeah, I think it's very tempting for us to say, well, yeah, we suffered, so why should you get it without suffering?
I think that boils down to there were two types of alternative or metalhead, whatever you want, alternative people at the time. There were the fighters. There were the ones that were just like, no, and there were and then there were people like us that were just like, well, I'm not really going to fight you on this because I don't really give a fuck about what you think. I'm just gonna do it. And we're the ones that are going, nah, come on, wear this, wear that. Like, that's heaps, mad. I can't wait till shorts below your knees are popular again. I'm sick of seeing fucking grown men thighs all the fucking time. Like,
give me. I need to buy. I just need to find somewhere that'll sell me a decent pair of jorts. Okay, that's all I need. I need somewhere. But but yeah, and I think it's very important. I think that that those of us that are the embracing type on that are more so, because we, you know, we end up in this place where, you know, we want, like, it look, it comes back to the gig thing as well. Like we want more people to come to the gigs, so and stuff to keep these venues alive. Why would we shun people that could come to these things? Like, it doesn't
make sense.
It really doesn't make sense. And it's, yes, okay, it's like the meme, right, of the fucking women only, you know, chicks only listen to metal because they're trying to get guys. And then it's like the you know, show the metal guy, and it's like a fucking Chewbacca looking motherfucker in, you know, in a crusty battle vest, right? It's like, so it's, yeah, I think there's the gatekeeping element that is just very inherent there, and I think it's a lot worse for women, but it does come from I think a place of entitlement that some people feel because they feel that they suffered for it, so it's not fair that other people get it without the suffering. But isn't that kind of the whole point?
The point of any generation is to suffer so the next generation doesn't have to.
Yeah,
that's the whole point of being an adult.
Yeah, like we've suffered things so that the next people don't have to, and it's not like it's some noble fucking cause or anything.
No,
but, like, we went through shit that we went through, and we all kind of said to ourselves, like, I would hope that other people don't have to go through this. And now that other people don't have to go through this, there's some of us out there that are going, why don't they have to go through this?
Yeah.
You know, I went through it, they should have to go through it too. And it's amazing how quickly that switches up. But I think that's generally less amongst, like, our age group of it. I think it's more in, like, the Gen X and Boomer portions of the scene. But let's not forget a lot of those fucking, you know, a lot of those OG metalheads, they're boomers now. Like, they're fucking.
But, you know, I was thinking about this today. Ultimately, didn't they just like pop music because heavy metal and rock and roll was popular at the time? It was the most popular music in the late 70s, early and the 80s.
No. I mean, if we're talking like
you got to think MTV was built on rock and roll and heavy metal.
It was built on rock and roll and certain more crossover parts of heavy metal, but I think, and glam metal especially, more than any other. But like, glam metal was basically like that's like the pop music of metal. You know, it was it was like sexy, and it was the safest version of it for most people. But I think there was still a lot of stuff around it. Like, you got to remember, like, the Satanic Panic that took place around through kind of like the 70s and 80s there, where there was this massive concern about Satanism, and you're talking people like, you know, Black Sabbath getting dragged into court because someone committed suicide and listened to their fucking, that was the album.
The album or something that was on the record, right? when they got home.
And they're in court trying to say to Ozzy, like, well, you know, in Paranoid, you say, like, I tell you to end your life, I wish I could, but it's too late. And then he's like, no, that's not the lyric. The lyric is, I tell you to enjoy life. Like, and or their song, what is it, like, Lord of This World. That's, you know, or what's the other one I'm thinking of? Oh, god damn it, this is gonna bug me now. Hang on.
Well, isn't there a Hendrix? There's like, so who sung the song I Want to Kiss the Sky?
Yeah, that was Purple Haze by Jimi Hendrix. Yeah,
so there was some famous musician that thought the lyrics were I want to kiss this guy.
Yeah,
that was I remember.
Oh, you've got, like, you know, but you've got something like After Forever, you know, by Black Sabbath, which is okay. If you take specific, you know, it's the same as always. They'll take specific lines out of the song and be like, how is this you know, like, After Forever, would you like to see the Pope on the end of a rope? Do you think he's a fool? And it's like, yeah, you look at that lyric in isolation, and it might sound like an anti-Christian song, but it's actually a Christian song, because it's you know, the song as a whole is like, would you like to see this? Well, that's a dumb position to have, you know. And
that's what everybody's going through again these days with you know, you got to be careful what you say on the internet, or, you know, I listen to a lot of stand-up comedy, and they going through a lot of that because they'll clip something, but they cut, you know, this much out of it, and you only hear that line, and you don't hear it in that sentence, and then, you know, it's brought up as something else.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just so, like, yeah, nowadays we can look back and go, okay, well, these bands are quite popular because there was a lot there, but you know, when you're looking at the biggest selling albums of all time through that, it's stuff like Michael Jackson through that time, or, you know, other, it's like, Prince.
I'd say that back in the day would have been awesome too.
Yeah, so yes, they were popular, but I think we kind of, and there was a definite popularity about it, but I don't think a lot of it was ever considered major. Like Metallica was not mainstream until the 90s.
Yeah. Well, okay, but even then you look.
They were popular. Yeah. They were very popular, but they were definitely not mainstream until the Black Album came out, and they were more of a crossover genre, like type of band at that point. Yeah. Which a lot of time, you know, you got to remember, like at that point, a lot of the older school fans were like, "Oh fuck Metallica, they sold out," because they went mainstream, or they were perceived to have gone mainstream. So yeah, it's I don't know. These things are just, they're impossible to fucking to tease out all the details, I guess, because there's just so many factors that play into these things. But I tell you what, man, you probably should have stuck with the nu metal shit when you started coming back into it, because like the nu metal revolution is real, dude. The nu metal renaissance is fucking happening.
I've seen a few bands coming up, like, once again, I can't remember names because I'm shocking with it, because it'll come up on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever I got going. I'm like, oh, I like this.
Yeah. Well, Talah's a good one. Talah, Tallah. They're a really, really good one. They just dropped a new album recently. There's that, what is it, Chaosium, that's basically Korn version 2. What's the other fucking band? There was another band that...
There's another one I seen the other day. It's got like a bit... I think they're New Zealand. Like, I think they're Kiwi. And there's a big like the frontman is like a really big boy too. So it's kind of like, when I seen him, like, oh, that's different. You don't see like big guys usually being, and he was like moving around too, and but it was really, really catchy and good lyrics.
Those
and
Kiwis got
good
hustle.
riffs. And
Tetrarch's another one. They're really, really fucking good. They've got almost like almost a bit of a early Linkin Park elements about them.
I love all that.
They're very, very heavy, and they've got like, so there's definitely a revival happening in that genre at the moment. People are kind of, it's gone full circle, right? It's like it happened, it happened, and the early bands in that one were awesome, and then it became a trend, and everyone tried to cash in on it. Much the same as what happened with grunge. You know, once it became trendy,
and that, I think they were all the ones that were kind of the worst ones, so to speak. It was when people were trying to not do what they were doing and trying to. And I suppose that's some bands, you need to experiment here and there, and then they found out it didn't work, and then they went back to what they were doing, and then that's where some of their best stuff came from.
But it's definitely, and I think it's kind of come around full circle now, and people are like, okay, if it's like nu metal, if it's done, and nu metal, by nu metal I mean specifically like metal that's generally, the riffage and stuff is generally more towards the simpler end of the spectrum, not the very like technical end of the spectrum. And you've got, often there'll be like affectations of rap style vocals. Maybe you'll have like samples and stuff in there as well.
A lot
like
of bounce,
or a DJ or something. A lot of bounce, a lot of groovy riff and stuff like that. That's what that's the style I'm kind of referring to here. Which I mean, it's almost like a lot of that element went through the roundabout of like post-hardcore, and then kind of went went away before it went away for a while, and now that's come back around again. And this revival of nu metal is almost a combination of that original nu metal and the post-hardcore kind of sound in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of people are going, okay, so was nothing wrong inherently with that style of music. It was just that it became overcrowded and insincere, and people are opening themselves up to that again. People are opening themselves up to that again now that there's genuine bands coming around doing it sincerely, genuinely, like people that kind of were born almost as that was dying, or as that was just kind of on the way out. And then they've discovered it growing up, and they're like, oh, this is amazing. Like, this doesn't sound like anything people are doing now. I want to do music that sounds like this.
Yeah.
So, and look, the same thing's happening in rock with like the grunge kind of thing, and that like late 90s, early 2000s rock vibe. Like that's all coming back too. So it's all just, swings and roundabouts, and it all does come back around eventually. You know, you just got to find...
I have a funny feeling
hit the right
during
moment.
COVID, in that first couple of months, a couple of people might have been doing some spring cleaning to keep busy. You might have dusted off a few old CDs and pulled out the old CD player instead of relying on Spotify, and just tapped into the good stuff again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
it's that clean, crisp audio.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to see that though. Like, it's nice to see that revival happening there, and hopefully it continues. Hopefully we get some more amazing music out of it. So, look, I think it's time we take this home. All right. So yeah, do you guys have any other gigs lined up at the moment? Is there anything?
So the only one that's kind of really done so far is we do have. It's like a 3-day kind of. I wouldn't say festival or anything like that. It's just like 3 gigs, but 3 nights in a row. Where there's a bunch of bands, bit more of a kind of thrashy feel, because I have a lot of contacts through a lot of bands I met through Hazmat had reached out to me and say, hey, do you want to come down? Like, you know, Tomorrow's New Format. So a band I met through Hazmat, Rautism, they're 3-piece, really cool thrash band, really awesome blokes. The bass player name organised 3 days, so it's the Australia Day, and then so that's a Thursday, I think it is.
It is.
And then the Friday, Saturday, so the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, there's 3 nights, and there's a bunch. I think there's about 8 Sydney bands. We're all going down, and there's 1 Melbourne band each night, and it's kind of like a New South Wales takeover Melbourne kind of 3-day little thing, which will be pretty cool. A bunch of bands, Temptress, Terrential. I'm sure you know Terrential.
Oh,
yeah,
no,
man, I went
to the day,
Fuck, I went to tape with the guy from one of the guys from Terrential. I'm pretty sure if he's still in the band, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I was studying at TAFE with him at some point.
So yeah, that'll be good, and that's really all we got on the cards. And as I said, kind of in the works for a few more to come, but yeah, not really locked in yet.
Nothing locked in. Okay, awesome. Kyle, what have you got?
Well, like I said
happening?
At the beginning of the stream, you can catch me on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the Beer Buddy channel on YouTube. I'll be doing my Gymno Rocks specials in the lead up to that. We'll have I'll just tell you the first band on. That's Hours of Neptune. So don't miss that. That'll be good. And then just what we got coming up Thursday.
Yeah, so Thursday next week, we'll let you guys know now. We are going to be doing a little closer to home with the podcast that week. We're going to be doing a Skunk Bone focused episode. So I'm going to have Zach on. We'll probably have Corey in here. Corey will probably be in the studio with me. Zach might even be in the studio with me too. We'll see if we can work that out. And we'll do that one. Just have a bit of a talk about how our first sort of year or so went as with the band and the first album, what we've got planned for this year, and see how we're going with that. Other than that, obviously, with the show, the Moshfest on High Street show cancelled. Unfortunately, if you're a friend of mine in Sydney, we were talking about catching up while I was down for some of that stuff. Unfortunately, that's not going to be happening. But, I'll try and do that. So now I just kind of have a free path to until I go to America, which is late February. That's about 6 or 7 weeks away now, which will be fun. We've still got to work out how I'm going to do the podcasts while I'm there, because I'll have to be up at like 3 in the fucking morning or some shit.
How long are you gone for?
6 weeks.
Okay.
6 weeks. I'll be away for 6 weeks. So You know, we'll see how we go, and we'll work something out. But as soon as we know what's happening around that, we will let you guys know. Massive thank you again, Aaron, for jumping on this one, and to the rest of tomorrow's new format for letting him come on and talk about it. You know, we're more than happy to have you guys on again at any time. If you've got anything happening that you want to talk about, anything you want to promote, stuff like that, feel free to let us know. We'll happy to do that. So yeah, once that next album's ready to drop, come on and talk all about that one.
No worries.
That'll be a lot of fun. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and watching. Thank you to Kiva for following there. Once again, if you like what we're doing here on the podcast, you can give us a follow on Twitch. You can follow our social media pages. We are open for subscriptions and donations now as well. So if you would like to support us financially, you are able to do that. It just helps us keep this ticking along, because obviously this takes a fair bit of time to get all this running. So please feel free to do so if you like. But if not, there's plenty of free ways you can support us, by watching or by following, sharing our posts, giving, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. And as always, we'll wrap this up. Oh, did you have something you wanted to...
Just one real quick thing I just noticed here. Baby Blower Upper and Merc.exe. 7 days ago, you guys started following, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that was during the stream last time, maybe.
Was it?
Maybe we missed that. I apologize if we missed that during the stream last time, guys. You guys were yeah, thank you for tuning in and watching all that. But yeah, look, as always, you know, we like to close this out with a little bit of kindness, a little bit of a positive message. You know, we all know the world's been a little bit of a shit place for the last couple of years. Everyone's kind of had it a bit rough. Just be kind to each other. Be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you deserve it.
Respect.
The world's tough enough as it is.
Yeah.
So please, you know, be kind to yourself. Be kind to everyone else. You don't really know what people are going through. So, thank you so much for everybody tuning in. Massive thank you again to Aaron and my co-host Kyle.